Good morning, everyone. Welcome back into Betsperts Golf here for the final major of the season. Cannot wait to talk about Troon here for the Open Championship. We will crown our champion golfer of the year. Coming off of a busy 3-event week, we had obviously a interesting Scottish, very interesting tilting finish, depending on where you were live for that one. 5-man playoff in Kentucky, and then another interesting finish there on Live. The man fresh off of basically no sleep because he stayed up to write the best Open Championship preview for Royal Troon that you will read on the internet this week. My guy Ron Kloss, PJ Splits 101. What's going on, bud?
Hey, yeah, busy time of the year, so you know how it is with kids, summertime, back and forth everywhere. So, yeah, but this is a great time of year for golf as well, staying up late, taking naps during the day, a lot of coffee. And yeah, there's just something magical about the Open Championship, the British Open, as we all kind of used to call when we were younger. But yeah, just, seeing the terrain, seeing the bad bounces, the gorse, all these things that you don't typically see on American courses. I love links golf. And so, Bobby Mack got it done again. It was just kind of another magical week for him. And so that was really cool to watch. And yeah, this week, we got everybody back. And, I think there's a lot of intrigue. We're going to have to wait another 9 months for the Masters to come. So let's enjoy this one.
Yeah, no, I love link style courses as well. It's unique. I think it takes definitely an interesting skill set. That's why I think looking at like major form or how someone's played in the other majors in the year isn't super relevant, especially considering what we can do with the rabbit hole and what we're trying to actually capture by looking at something like that, looking at different style courses, looking at what happened at Valhalla and what's going to happen here at Troon, and pulling that forward, I think is pretty useless. Scottish real quick. Personally, very, very tilting events. I only shot twice at the board at the top with Ludwig. I know you had Ludwig as well. And then Colin, who's in the mix as well. Thoughts on the drop from Bobby Mack? I have thoughts. I would not say that Bobby Mack cheated. He obviously took advantage of the rules as they were, but man, we got to figure something out. Like that was egregious. And again, at that point, to be honest, like I'm almost emotionally out of it, right? Because I think Ludwig's already cooked. Colin had doubled, like he was out of it. So it wasn't even that, like, I wasn't even tilting my bets at that point, right? This is not a my bet related take. It's just the dude, before he got a drop, took some sort of iron hybrid, took a massive hack at the rough, realized he had a sprinkler head in his stance, then gets relief, then takes a 7-iron. So if you are going to hit a 7-iron after getting ball in hand to improve your lie, and he said post in the presser that if he would have had to play it as it lies, he didn't think he could get it 100 yards. So I don't know why you have that club in hand to take a practice swing, other than to remove a shit ton of fescue that was just kind of lying in your way, and then gets relief because there's a sprinkler head. So, and then rolls one up. A magical shot to roll one up 6 feet and tap in for eagle, basically. Little short 6-footer. But what were your thoughts there? I obviously kind of shared mine.
Yeah, we've seen this throughout the year, and I couldn't remember if this, if it hurt you earlier in the year, but I remember, Xander had that one drop, and then,
Yes.
Wyndham Clark, and so it seems like, these guys, it's in the rules. Obviously, they're taking advantage of it.
Correct.
I think we'd all love to see just something where you play it as it lies, no matter where it is. If you have to go over something, around scoreboards, like, how they're so stingy at changing these old rules. And so it's probably not going to happen, but definitely something needs to change. I agree with you.
Yeah. Like the TIO, if like you fly one past through the green and it runs it to, stadium stands and stuff like that. Like I hate to see it because it's like, well, there's no risk. Like you're just using it as a backboard, essentially. We've seen some crazy stuff. I think like some of the stuff that we saw, I think Spieth in Texas was a bad one. He just played it off the roof. It's just frustrating to see. I think our guy Jeff Feinberg obviously took a strong stance on it. That was funny. He's like, try that with your boys over the weekend, see if they're going to want to play with you again. If hey, call them over and see if you're going to get relief from where Bobby Mack was. Like, you're not getting relief. You're playing that damn ball. That was just frustrating on it. What ended up being a very impactful shot in hole, right, for him to get an eagle there and just kind of flip that back into that tournament. So anyway, great golf. It gives us again the taste, as we touched on. The Renaissance Club is not full on link style course. We had obviously very benign weather. That the stretch of holes there that is exposed to the coast we just did not have wind, and that's why we had the scores that we had. Looks like the forecast here is going to be a little bit different, but we'll see. We're obviously a couple days out. It's a little bit tougher. So interesting approach in terms of trying to see if you can make a bet later in the week, if numbers have drifted, if you can see if there becomes a clear weather wave advantage. Those things I think are impactful and could matter in terms of when you enter the market versus a standard event, because this is not a standard event, and the weather is obviously massively impactful. So head over to Betsperts Golf, take advantage of Ron's preview. Again, it is going to give you all that you possibly can need to make decisions in terms of player pools for DFS, to fill out your betting card this week. All those things are captured there as well. Before we get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about something that our friends over at DraftKings have. If you're not familiar with Pick 6, you need to check it out. You can find it in the DFS app. You can download the app by itself. Did you ever play like an over-under game with your friends? I think Ron can eat this piece of pizza in under 30 seconds, or it could take him 2 minutes to down that 2 liter of pop or whatever. This is a game for you. If you're familiar with any of the other pick'em style games out there, the best way to play it for golf, I think, is they have like over under 36.5 holes. So if you like to make the cut parlay, I know a lot of our subscribers over at Betsperts Golf do, definitely chatting about that in the Discord all the time. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app. Use the promo code BSG. It's Betsperts Golf. New customers play $5 and get 50 in Pick 6 credits. That is code BSG for new customers. Play 5, get 50 in credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours, Ron. All right, talk to us about Troon. We haven't been here since Stenson and Phil battled out in 2026. Kind of a two-man game. They ran away from the field, scoring very difficult other than kind of what they did. And now we've basically added like 200 or so yards to make this a little bit longer since the last time we were here.
Yeah, it's a different test than like a St. Andrews where you've got all this room off the tee. It's a little bit actually in a lot of holes just really tight off the fairway. So you have your typical, your rough, which varies. Certain sides of the hole have longer rough than others. You have your gorse, you have your hummocks and your mounds, the pot bunkers. And so, there's a lot of danger off the tee. There's actually 101 bunkers on this course, and just reading some of the people, the regulars who play this course a bunch, it's just complaining about how many bunkers there are and how, obviously these are pros, they're used to this kind of stuff, but you really have to be careful because these are true bunkers where it's like a one-shot penalty if you find yourself in one of these. And so, this is definitely an accuracy over distance off the tee course. Ball striking in general, these greens are also about a quarter of the size. And St. Andrews are massive. Most links courses have massive greens. These are actually, I try to estimate because there's not a concrete number out there, but I came to around 4,500 square feet, which are like tiny, even for PGA Tour average. And so, if you just go and you watch the flyover video of the course, you'll see, there are so many greens that are just so small. And obviously, we're on the coast here in Scotland, western coast. And so you're going to have wind issues. And I've always kind of typically waited during the open week, to make bets just because, things can change on a dime out here. And weather wave could be a distinct possibility. And so obviously that's another variable to deal with this week. And so, Obviously, scrambling around the green play always comes, especially when you have greens this small. Putting seems to be a little easier than average. Going back and looking at the numbers, these greens are not super undulating. And again, whenever you get a tough course, I think it for me at least, it turns into more of a tee to green test. So probably looking at putting a little bit less this week. But yeah, pretty much everything else through the bag. You're going to be really tested here.
Yeah, it's a good call. I mean, as you said, and I tried to touch on it too. I think finding the weather waves, seeing if there's anything that comes in terms of what that can lead to, and I think that can impact things too. It's obviously tough too, and you see when you feel like there's some bad numbers wanting to take some early action, but I'm trying to have some restraint. I fired at a few so far, but mostly longer shots down the board where I think those numbers could shrink a little bit, but have not made a decision really at or near the top in terms of what we would consider the favorites for this event. And again, out of all of them, major wise, the Open Championship has brought some of the down the board winners in here historically, right? Like obviously it's a strong field, a big field, as your preview highlighted too, right? We typically top out on the tour at 156. We got 158 in here, for different reasons in terms of qualifiers and stuff like that. So again, big fields, top heavy fields. It's a major would be, but this is a spot that invites a little bit more variance. Again, I'm not poo-pooing Brian Harman and who he is as a golfer, but I don't think that we would have thought, hey, Brian Harman's someone that has a major championship coming down the pipe at some point in his career, right? Like he just was a good fit, was playing good golf, entered in good form, and then was up to the task of what was asked at Liverpool. And I think you could see that a little bit sometimes more at the Open Championship versus faking it at Augusta or, a PGA or a US Open event. It's kind of a little bit of a different track and different style. So, all right, let's take a look at the opening odds board. We'll look over, thanks to our friends at the lines, have some of these early odds up for us, and we can kind of see what those are looking like. As you can see, Scotty, again, in terms of, there's obviously not the push for Scotty as we saw leading into Pinehurst. Obviously, Pinehurst did not go super well. Scotty, in terms of where he's finished in major championships, the Open Championship has been maybe his least impactful, although he's always been in the mix. And so I think telling yourself a story that, this doesn't fit Scotty Scheffler, I think you are doing yourself a massive disservice. You're telling me that, fairways matter, ball striking matters, having a scramble matters. Scotty Scheffler is going to be in the mix. Rory, obviously, nice Open Championship history, put together a nice little showing again at the Scottish. 8-1s out there. Xander 14. Ludwig is especially still getting that love, even though he could not finish on Sunday. 14's out there as well. Bryson has struggled in Open Championship golf. Interested to see how he approaches, especially with the spot where maybe less than driver is in play here. 16s on Bryson, 16s available on Colin as well, who putting the ball in play. Irons, long irons, form, all those things make a ton of sense. And obviously won at Royal St. George back in 2021. Tommy, if you again, nice showing here last year. You would think if Tommy was going to win a major championship, this would probably be the best side for him. Rahm still out there as well. Hatton, that is getting shorter at 28. 33s out there on Vic. And then a little bit of a teardrop where you go down to, it just blows my mind to see Bobby Mack on the same price as the odds board as Brooks Koepka. But that's where we are here. Cam Smith right there as well. Tom Kim, Shane Lowry, Finau, Thigala, Hideki kind of in that sub 50 range. And then you get down there quite a bit. And again, some, longer numbers for some good golfers. And that's what we have when we have major championships. So just any thoughts at the top there, Ron? Any thoughts on Scotty, Rory, Xander, anything kind of at the top that you want to share? Bryson could be whatever you want to do.
This board is so intriguing to me because, you have obviously Scotty at the top again, and then you have all these other guys who, you got Xander, you would think, in my opinion, I think he's kind of overtaken Rory, but then, Rory's got this links history. And so, there's kind of that battle between those two. I think Bryson is just fascinating to watch this week again, because, going into Pinehurst, wasn't really confident he was going to have a good week just because of the unpredictability of that course, and he kind of got that again this week. And so, he only has one top 30 in his career at the Open, and so it's going to be really fun to watch. How he handles this, and his wedge game has looked just so good, even on live. So yeah, that's intriguing to me. And then you have these guys who just haven't really won, especially a major before. You have Tommy sitting there like 25-1 is just, I just don't know how anyone can pull the trigger at this point. I mean, he is kind of, in his realm here on Links Golf. I did on Twitter, I put, went through all the way back to 2014, every Links course played, including DP World Tour courses for all these other Irish Open, Scottish Open going back. And so, I mean, he's gained the most total strokes out of anybody in this field. Excellent links player. You have Tyrrell Hatton right there as well. And then you have all these guys, past them, Cantlay, who knows what's going on with him. Sitting there at 45, Cam Smith, 45. Like you said, Tony Finau is an excellent links player. And, you can get him on Rivers at, 55 right now. And so, yeah, there's just, I mean, we saw Brian Harman 150-1 last year. And, like you said, I could really see this is another year where it's kind of wide open, and would not be surprised to see somebody from further down, even an Aaron Rai, who he's been there every single week recently. And, again, tee to green test, maybe putting not mattering as much. He's tidied that part of his game up recently. And so, yeah, just some interesting names here where you could probably build a pretty nice card on some long shots that, really aren't long shots.
Yeah, I agree. It's, the actual win equity or guys that are in form, because that to me more than some other traditional Open Championship stats. I think we've seen guys come to the Open that are playing good golf. Even though they're not playing particularly this style of golf very often, they come in form. It's not a place where you're going to find form if you are struggling a little bit. So even though you might have a guy that just, longer term is probably more bankable than some of these guys down the board, finding form, you will definitely, I think, lead yourself in the right direction in terms of, how you're going to build out the player pool. So let's jump into it a little bit. I want to show people too, like we're rounding out the end of the season at Betsperts Golf, and we are, obviously we're dealing with our last major here. But a lot of good golf still to come. So if you want to check us out, scoop up a month. I mean, a month with us is going to get you obviously the Open Championship. This week also we have the Barracuda, right? We have an alt field event. You can model and do some stuff with that as well. Then we come into the 3M Open. You can model, obviously, all of that stuff as well. We had a little bit of a hiatus in terms of standard golf, but the Olympics is going to be there. I'll be able to see what we can do in terms of covering the Olympics for you. And then we're getting into the, almost the playoffs, the Wyndham Championship before we get into the first round of the FedEx St. Jude. It's basically 6 events over the next month if you were to get a Betsperts Golf subscription. So think about checking that out. Obviously, that is a ton of golf for you to be able to take a look at. If you want to try, obviously, you get a year sub. That's a rolling year. So it's going to take you through this time next year. But you just want to try us out for a little bit, check us out, betspertsgolf.com. You can find us on Twitter at betspertsgolf. DM us there. I will find you a promo code, get you a discount on the month for you to check us out. Come hang out with us. Again, you get access to all of the content that we do there. So all of Ron's models, sub models, there are lots of things that don't make their way to Twitter that end up just in Discord for subscribers. You get the Discord to get all the official plays that we push out. And then you get access, obviously, to all the written content, all the picks, and then the rabbit hole. I'll be able to build all your own models. You can get access to other expert models. I can show you there too. If you've never seen it, we'll pull it up here. You go into the view expert ranking section. You want to see what Andy Lack is doing. See right here, Andy Lack from Inside Golf Podcast. You'll see Matt Vicenzi, Tap It In Podcast. Myself, Ron, Andy Molitor, who does the betting show with me on Tuesday. Get access to all of our models as well. It can help you build your own, and check it out if you've never done that here on the rabbit hole. So, all right, Ron, I want to show you mine. We can kind of look into it a little bit, show you what happened there, show you some of the stuff that I missed. I probably want to go back and make some tweaks. It's typically what I do anyway. But making kind of a first run through to get a sense of what I think is going to matter here this week. And we pull this up. If folks are seeing this for the first time, Very straightforward. There's a tutorial for you to watch if you want to, but obviously, hopefully watching these shows here today, the betting show on Tuesday will help you out and show you how it's done. So let me see my save ranks. Let me pull up Troon and show you what I've got here. No surprise. You build the model these days, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have Scotty Scheffler at the top. And let me see what I got for you. Let me go across the board in terms of the statistics. So a little bit out of order in terms of how I typically do it. So this is just to start strokes gained total last 36 rounds. So for the most part, who's playing well over the last 6 months, who's dialed in, who's playing the best golf. And that you can kind of see when we search by this. To Ron's point, you see an Aaron Ryan here in the top 10, populating that's a little bit higher than you would expect. We're going to have some mixed data, obviously, here with some of these live guys or some of these other, guys that don't always show up here. That makes it a little bit harder for this event. But again, Scotty at the top, Rory, Xander, Colin, Bryson, Ludwig, Davis Thompson, obviously continuing to play good golf. Aaron Rye, Hideki, Tony Finau, just in terms of tee to green over the last 36 rounds. This here, again, you can click on the eye. It's going to show you what you did. This is windy conditions. You can go into our database here, filter by condition. Show folks this here real quick. We go into the filter by condition section. You can select, a million different filters, difficult scoring conditions, pars, event type. If you want to just look at majors, as I said, you want to look at the green surface, size, all of this stuff. Off the tee club, which we're going to get into. But windy. This is wind gusts. So looking at gusts north of 19 miles per hour, which we don't know is going to be what we're going to have sustained here all week. But I want to see just in this scenario, who plays well when it is windy. Again, just to start to, and you can look at the reverse too and see who doesn't play well in these conditions. Look who plays pretty well in windy conditions over the last 3 years. Tony Finau at the top of the board. John Rahm, Sanjay M, Rory, Akshay, Scotty, Ben Griffin, Seabez, Sahith, Denny. How are you handling windy in terms of modeling this week, Ron? What do you want to do with that? Is it just kind of make a small list, see who you like, maybe use it as something way to cross guys off the list? How do you want to approach that?
So just looking at the forecast, it's kind of been going back and forth here. Definitely looks like there are a couple windy days coming. And so for me, it's just when we get here to the, to the UK and the Open and Scottish, it's just kind of a given that not necessarily maybe putting it into a model, but yeah, it's something where I'm definitely tracking. I'm definitely kind of making a list when I build not my rabbit hole model per se, but my model that I also build on Google Sheets, which it kind of digs a little deeper in different ways. But I definitely, kind of track, these guys, like, a lot of the ones you mentioned are ones that, even Akshay, just if you look at his numbers, like just so many good rounds he's played in winning conditions. And so I definitely think it's something to keep in the back of your mind as you're kind of monitoring the weather moving forward. And yeah, whether you use it as a tiebreaker, but especially if we get like a wave advantage. And something I've had success with is even for playing DraftKings, DFS, is you got some guys on the bad side of the weather wave, but they're really good in the wind. You can find some edges there as well by playing some of those guys.
Love it. Yeah, it's a great call. So some interesting names here on the back end of this. And again, I would not use this to just put a line through their names and cross them off. But in terms of poor performance the last 3 years in windy conditions, again, the sample we're going to get from Brooks or Bryson is not great, right? So we're not tracking wind data on live. We're barely tracking anything on live. But Brooks is down here. Ben and Tom Kim, which is surprising to see. Tom Kim fits a lot of what I think the ask is this week in terms of keeping the ball in play off the tee. Hideki not great off the tee. Shane Lowry surprising. I'm sorry, this is windy. Shane Lowry surprising, obviously, considering his history. And again, this is makes the windy data a little bit harder. Bobby Mack here as well. Spieth. Those are some of the interesting names in terms of poor performance in the wind. But again, interesting data set, and we'll have to wait and see how the weather shakes out. strokes gained total here. This is links style golf. Who's played well over the last 5 years on links tracks? Let's see. We get the top of this model. Shane Lowry. There we go. It makes sense. Bobby Mack, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantley, as you mentioned, starting to round into form a little bit compared to where he was early in the season. Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Tommy Fleetwood, Louis Oosthuizen, and Cam Smith, Brooks Koepka rolling out kind of the top 10 there. Louis coming off of a T4 on Live. Louis got a bunch of other like top 2 finishes in the last calendar year. Obviously won the 2010 Open Championships. That's his one major. So that's interesting to see. Obviously a mixed data set that we don't really see comparatively because he's playing on Live. Keeping the ball in play, Ron. I mean, in terms of like priority metrics this week, where would you rank keeping the ball in play off the tee?
Yeah, this is probably going to be one of, along with approach. I'll probably take a look at approach play on other tough approach courses. I'll look at small greens. I think that's something you can look at this week as well. Okay. But yeah, I think off the tee, the ability to, this is not a long course, so I think a lot of guys, even going back, even with it being 200 yards longer, we saw 2016 both Henrik Stenson and Phil Mickelson. Henrik had his trusty 3-wood almost off the tee every single hole. Phil Mickelson, used iron on so many holes off the tee just to kind of play it safe. And both of those guys, obviously they had longer approach shots into these greens, but both of those guys are just really good long iron players. I mean, even back then, you look at 2016, they were 2 of the best long iron players in the entire game. And so I think, we could find, certain guys this week. I think a Tony Finau kind of fits that if he would have the discipline, to kind of club down off the tee. I think with his long iron play and his links experience, just even looking back again, I'm looking at the number right now, and in 46 career links rounds, he's gaining 1.96 strokes per round total. So, I think off the tee, I'm definitely going to look at, less than driver courses and distance from edge of the fairway. Again, like we talk about, guys who are not going to be spraying it, who have control over their ball. Even looking at another thing, we have the major filter as well. And so I like to look at just in majors, who plays well off the tee in those events, because now some of those are a little different. Some of those are kind of bomb away courses as well. But, when you have, whether it's tight fairways, you have the pressure of, you got to find the fairway. There's just a lot of different routes with the rabbit hole that you can kind of dig in and look.
Could not agree more. I can see here in terms of the weights, because I have driving accuracy right next to distance from the edge of the fairway. But I'm giving, I think it's a massive piece this week. So it's got 15% total. You got to keep the ball in play. And I think you make a great point. We can look at what happened the last time we were here, and what worked for the 2 guys that were running away from the field is they were very intentional about keeping the ball in play. And you mentioned Stenson, who it's kind of always been his game down the stretch. He keeps the ball in play, whether that's an iron or, can hit that 3-wood with a little bit of distance, but knows that he can manipulate it and keep it in the fairway. For Phil to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm clubbing down and I'm going to keep myself in this that way is very interesting. So I'm interested to see if you just evolution of the game and what's changed in the approach of guys kind of trying to bomb and gouge. Can that be an adjustment for certain guys this week? So yeah, I'm looking at distance from the edge of the fairway as well. And you can see, I like to see where there's a gap, but you can see kind of the consistency here with Morikawa at the top there. C was going to keep it in play. We know Glover is as well. Russell Henley, Harmon, like that was the model really for last year at Liverpool as well. You mentioned Aaron Rai earlier. We touched on Tom Kim. You can see here, this is part of why Scheffler kind of even separates himself from the top, because he is top 10 in distance from the edge of the fairway, inside the top 25 in driving accuracy as well. So those guys are just kind of different beasts. Spot for Vic, if he can get the short game dialed in. Connor's obviously going to keep it off, in play off the tee. Definitely important metric this week in terms of how you're modeling. All right. I looked at some approach. I wanted to look at just some short-term approach, but I also probably want to go back and add some of the stuff that you're talking about. whether approach being just difficult to gain on approach, approach into small greens, something like that I want to incorporate a little bit. But this is just more so, recent form approach, who's playing well right now in terms of, ball striking, getting the green. Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Xander Schauffele, Ludwig Oberg, Tom Hoagie, Colin Morikawa, Tommy Fleetwood, Ben Griffin, Tom Kim, Sepp Straka, right there rounding out your top 10. Just again, recent form approach. Here's how I use some of the filters. So I have some tee to green filtering this week because I'm kind of with you in terms of where we are putting. I wanted to look at putting, but I think I can look at putting like separately. I want to understand in these conditions who's good tee to green because I think that matters quite a bit. So this is the last 2 years, tee to green, less than driver off the tee. Because I don't think strokes gained total matters that much to me there. I really want to see when the ask is clubbing down, who is good in less than driver spots. And again, it's part of this is, as Ron said, who makes the decision to lean into less than driver, right? This is who's performing well in this scenario. We don't know as of now who is going to make those decisions, especially early. Like it's a weird, the way the holes kind of flow, like you got to score early. It looks like those holes are the ones where you can have some opportunities to go a little bit lower. But it's going to be very telling to see what those guys do early. Are they taking club head covers off, or are we still trying to keep the ball in play? Because the back nine in particular looks like it's kind of a hold on to your ass, get in, try to grind out some pars. So in like the pick'em games, underdog, if they have they don't have a big difference in terms of like front nine, back nine scoring, there might be some opportunities there in that game as well. So anyone jump out to you here, Ron, in terms of less than driver off the tee being inside the top 10 here? Some familiar names. JT kind of collapsed over the weekend after getting off to a hot start, but these guys are going to keep the ball in play. Oh, you're muted there. Sorry.
Yeah, my bad. I think it's imperative this week to look for those guys. I think, for me, just in general, and I don't know if it's just a kind of a bias, but I think it's smart to just really focus on guys who have played well on links courses in the past. And, you just have these subset of guys. A lot of these are international guys. You look at a guy like Ryan Fox, who has tons of experience, in not only majors, but kind of decent finishes in open events. A guy who's played a ton of DP World Tour events on links courses. And so, seeing guys like him, Aaron Rye, another guy who's played, 63 career rounds on these types of courses. And then, you see sort of some names, even looking at going back to, distance from edge of the fairway, you see a Lucas Glover on there. Like he's literally only played 12 career links rounds. And as good a player as he is, guys like that who just don't have the experience, I trust those guys just way less. And so usually whether it's betting, whether it's DraftKings, DFS, it's going to have a pretty heavy flavor of guys who have just kind of been there, done that. And I think that's just that experience this week is just so important. Even a guy like Brian Harmon, like going into last year, he really, if you look back, he had a pretty decent, links history, not expansive, but, he wasn't ever bad on links courses. And, his game just kind of fits, just excellent scrambler, kind of that bulldog mentality, the weather's not going to get to him, kind of a grinder type. So those are the guys I think you're looking for. And, like we said, you don't have to be super long here. We saw obviously Brian Harmon on a bit of a different track last year came through. And so, controlling your ball off the tee, I think is going to be paramount this week. And especially as we get to this back nine, like you said, you got a couple par fives in the front. You have, three just right off the bat, 3 par fours under 400 yards. And so if you're not a couple shots under, those first kind of 6-7 holes, it's going to be really tough down the stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely going to be that. It looks pretty clearly that that's the case. You got to take advantage of the early opportunities. Next one that I have here is tee to green, missed fairway penalty being high. Looking at that over the last 2 years, right? This is kind of in conjunction with some of the other ones. Are you clubbing down? Are you keeping the ball in play? Because if you're not, whether that is finding yourself in one of the pot bunkers in the fairway or just, off of the short grass, it's going to be a penalty. It's going to be, not a penalty stroke, but it's going to be harder to gain strokes. So looking at over the last 2 years, who plays their best in these scenarios. Scotty Scheffler, Hideki Matsuyama, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig and Rory tied at 4th. Siwoo, Cantley, Xander, Finau, Victor Hovland. So guys that just understand. Again, guys have had some success in major championships or in difficult tracks when the missed fairway penalty is high. You can see some other guys just outside here, rounding up the top 20. Some other names that have made their way into some of the other tops of the list. So the other one here that I have looking at some other stuff is just difficult scoring. So last 2 years, very difficult in difficult scoring conditions. Again, this is whether it's the toughest tracks on tour or major championships when we're not getting into like the, maybe you get there with the leader getting into the teens or low mid teens or whatever, kind of like what we had with the two guys with Stenson and Phil. Again, everyone else was single digits. I think to make the cut was like +5. So difficult scoring conditions for sure. Again, the top of the board, Scotty, Rory, Xander, Hideki again, Shane Lowry, Colin Morikawa, Wyndham Clark, Tony Finau, Corey Connors, John Rahm are your top 10 there. So again, just some weeding out the week, Ron, getting some of the top names to the top.
Yeah, and I love looking at that tee to green only from a difficult course perspective, because again, not saying that putting doesn't matter this week, but whenever you have these lower scoring, tougher conditions, we've seen kind of bad putters kind of stay and even rise to the top sometimes. And so it's not a putting contest. You don't have to go making every single putt. And so I think these guys and say what you will about Scotty, kind of maybe went back a little bit with his putting a few times recently, but man, if he just plus average this week, we saw the ball striking still at Pinehurst look just really good. And so, I think it's he kind of talked about it himself. He did not like the unpredictable nature, and we kind of do have that here again this week. And so,
Sure.
interesting to see how that affects him.
Yeah, it really is. And he's rested, hopefully. We'll see how that works here too. Putting, I did look at a little bit in a couple different ways. Bogey avoidance and putting. The putting filter is looking at slow greens over the last 2 years, again, which is kind of what we have here. If you want to look specifically at the fescue native putting, you can look at that as well, because they have to make these greens slow because of the factor of the weather that can come in here wind wise. I'm not sure if I want to keep that or what I want to do with that, but just looking at slow putters or putting on slow surfaces: Poston, Cole, Bobby Mack, Cam Smith, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Sam Burns, Seabez, Hatton, Lowry, Collin, which is interesting to see. For the most part, it's good putters. They're still good, even on slow greens there too. Bogey avoidance, I don't know. I mean, bogey avoidance, I feel like is kind of tied into some of the tee to green stuff I'm doing with filtering. So I'm not sure how I want to do this. I want to incorporate. I made a change and I didn't add around the green back in. I want to add around the green because obviously that can matter on small greens. So anything that I missed that you think definitely we need to capture here this week?
Yeah, I do agree with you. Just real quick on the putting, this is kind of a bent POA mix, but it's we have a filter also in the rabbit hole for native grasses, and so I think that's another one I'll check this week too, and kind of gather those rounds together. I think bogey avoidance is definitely critical, and what I'll do, even though there's not going to be a ton of birdies, though there have been reports that if the wind dies down, this could be a 15 under, 17 under week. It could be higher scoring or easier scoring than we think. So I'll also look at birdie or better percentage in difficult to very difficult conditions as well, just to kind of cover that scoring as well. We do have 3 par 5s that you kind of almost have to take advantage of. These are some of the toughest par 3s you're going to see. And so I'll look at par 5 scoring as well as kind of along with birdie or better, my 2 main scoring metrics. But yeah, I think you don't need to get too cute this week. I think, looking at, like you already did, missed fairway penalty, all those things are really important.
Yeah, we'll go right back and tweak it. That's the beauty of it too. I can make them as much or many of these as possible. Find some stuff that you read through content and understand that maybe you want to capture that in a different way and go back and do that. And again, the ability to look at other people's models as well, right? You can look at mine, you can look at Ron's, you can look at Andy Lack's, you can look at Matt Vicenzi, like you said, and add some stats. What are they modeling and capturing that I'm not? Do I believe that that's something that I should add or try to find some way, or skip it? Do I think that that's, a blind spot? Like, that's kind of the beauty of the rabbit hole too, where you can kind of find so many ways to do it. Sometimes you can overcomplicate it. I think it's okay to keep it nice and simple and clean as well. So again, not as shocking top 10. Again, I'm kind of made a couple of bets, want to make a couple more, but I'm hesitant to fire until I get a little bit more weather information there too. So kind of a balancing act. If you think a number is going to get away from you, I don't think you should hesitate. Jump in on it. Paul in the chat wants to know, do we have average width of fairway? It looks like on the data sheet, Ron, that they don't give that to us. Do you have any information there?
Yeah, it's really hard to get data for these open courses. Even strokes gained data, like going back to 2016, we have strokes gained total, but there's no shot link for any of these courses. We do have data for last year's open full strokes gained data and for 2022 as well. But yeah, for width of fairway, there's no, even with like the green size, I kind of had to estimate because there's just no numbers out there. And so that's just kind of how the RNA is. They're not great at giving information out. So, they're definitely narrow. I would kind of put them at probably estimate around maybe the 30 to 32 yard range wide on average.
Okay. Yeah, 30 was the number in my head too, but that makes sense. You can see here, you can go into, RTJ Trail, Grand National. I'm going to play there soon. You can go into any of these, courses, Royals, basically is going to capture most of your stuff too. Obviously, you can just go into by conditions here and look at different stuff too, or you can go into the course type and search for just links style courses as well if you want to see that filter, which I had in mind, see who's played well on link style courses as well. So again, as much of the data that's available for us or that Ron could find, and he did by hand, he has for you here in the course section as well. So, all right. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Again, before you take off, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you riding with us this morning. Again, take advantage. Betsperts Golf. You're coming right now. You're going to get 6 events for the next month. Find us on Twitter at Betsperts Golf. Let us know if you want a discount. Check us out. Get you a discount for a month to try us out. I think you'll have some fun. And jump in the Discord. Great like-minded community that loves to chat and sweat their DFS lineups or their bets. Again, I think it's just having like-minded people to talk the game with, I think is a lot of fun. And obviously get access to all of Ron's content, which is well worth it. And as he mentioned, the sub models and all the other stuff that he builds, that stuff just goes in the Discord for subscribers. That stuff used to be free for you on Twitter, but it goes in the subscriber Discord now. So check that out. We appreciate it. For Ron, I'm Noonie. We'll see you all next time. Thanks for hanging out. Let's make some winners this week.